Last weekend was 4th of July, FYI, for all of you visiting Canadians. We celebrated one of our national holidays. And so all of my nieces and nephews were with my family, my parents, at their place. And so I got to visit them. And I have this one niece, her name is Marin. And Marin is also my goddaughter. She's 9 years old. And Marin is developmentally disabled. And so she's, she's really, she can remember stuff like nothing. But, she was born not able to keep up with the other kids her age. But Marin has this mind like a steel trap. Like everything you say, she remembers. And so last Thanksgiving when I visited my family, she was into jingles. So it was like she would come up to me and she'd say, do farmers. So I'd have to say, bump, 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 bump. Or she'd say, do progressive. Progressive. Well, come on, you guys. Do McDonald's. I'm loving it. Yeah. So she goes, and she's always come up to me and say, do one more jingle. She'd name the one she wanted. She loved farmers. But this last week, she was into jokes. And so the very first thing she said, Uncle Mike, tell me a joke. And so I said, okay, here's a joke. A mommy tomato and a baby tomato are walking along a wall. And the baby tomato falls off. What's the mommy tomato say? And the answer is ketchup. Right? So I tell this joke to Marin. She's so great. And a mommy tomato, baby tomato walk along a wall. The baby tomato falls off. What's the mommy tomato say? And Marin looks at me and she says, no. And at first I was like, no, that's really good. That's what a mommy tomato would say if their baby fell off a wall. So the whole week, then she'd give me another joke. So I'd say, why did the cookie go to the hospital? Because he was feeling crummy. How did the baby get to the hospital? In a ambulance. This was like joke after joke. There were things like, what's green and has wheels? Grass, I lied about the wheels. You have things like, what's red and smells like blue paint? Red paint. You have something like, hey, what is green and invisible? This cabbage. Knock, knock. To whom? So it was joke after joke. And I was thinking about this, here is my goddaughter, this just great little kid, Marin, developmentally disabled. And in another culture, she would not be considered to be a person. But because she was born in a culture formed by Christianity, I look at her and society looks at her and says, no, Marin's a person. Marin's a human being. Marin has dignity. The only reason is because she grew up in a culture formed by Christianity for no other reason. You know that in the early church, what happened was these people, they encountered Christ and they realized, if Jesus is going to be my God, then I have to live differently than the people around me. If Jesus is God, not one of the gods, he's not just my personal God, but he's not really himself God, then that has to change the way I live. So one of the things that denoted or marked the life of the Christians in the early church was they lived differently than the culture around them. For example, in the early church, they considered every human being to be of equal worth and dignity. Did you know this? That until Christianity came on the scene, no one ever believed that. Until Christianity came on the scene. No one, no philosophy, no religion, no culture ever thought that human beings were of equal worth. So if Christianity isn't true, that's not true. If Christianity is not true, if the Bible is not true, truly the Word of God, then you know what? It is not true that we're all created equal. Now, we have this Declaration of Independence that says we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal, endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Here's the thing. You ever stop and ask yourself that question? Wait, is it self-evident that we're all created equal? The answer is no. Look around the room, you guys. There are some people in this room who are stronger than others. There are some people in this room who are smarter than others. There are some people in this room who are just better at being human beings than others. You're a better person than the person sitting next to you. I mean that to each and every one of you. That's not true. It can't happen, right? It is not self-evident that all human beings are created equal. It is only revealed to us through Scripture, throughout Judeo-Christian revelation. Human beings are created equal. And so Christians believed this, and so they treated people like that. You know, Christians were the first people to come along and say, actually, men and women are equal in dignity. We're not the same, but we're equal in dignity. Christians came on the scene, and they saw people who were sick. In fact, there are a number of plagues that broke out in the first couple hundred centuries of Christianity. And what would happen is people would just bring out their dead, bring out their dying, and they'd abandon them in the city square. And what happened was Christians would get up out of their own lives, out of their own homes. They walk through the streets, and they just collect other people's dying family members because they believed that it's true that human beings are created in God's image and likeness. And they all, whether they're strong and healthy, or whether they're weak and sick, all should be treated like that. They believed this was true, and that truth changed the way they lived and changed the way they treated other people. In fact, if Marin was born 1900 years ago, what was legally permissible in Roman culture and Greek culture was that the father would come in, inspect the child, and if he didn't like how the child looked, or he thought the child was weak, or thought the child was sick, he would just throw it outside and let it die of exposure. Sometimes they had this test where a father would come in and he'd let the infant grab onto his fingers with the little infant hands, right? And if he picked up the baby, and the baby could hold on, we'll keep it. If the baby was so weak that it couldn't hold on to his fingers, toss it. But Christians said that's not true. Human beings are made good in God's image and likeness, even if they're weak, even if they're developmentally disabled, whether they're male or female, whether they're rich or poor, every human being is worthy of love. The thing is this, either that's true or it's not. It's not just true for you or true for me. It's either true or it's not true. Now, I want to talk about truth a little bit today. What is truth? One quick and simple definition of truth is this, 2 words. Truth is simply what is. Like, truth is simply just what is. So, a statement is either true or false to the degree that it conforms to what is. Here's what I mean. This is our little philosophy lesson for the day. A statement is either true or false to the degree that it conforms to reality, to what is. So if I were to say, there is a microphone stand on this stage, is that statement true? Because it does what? It conforms to reality. If I were to say, is it more true to say there are multiple microphone stands on this stage? Yes, why? Because it even more fully conforms to what is in reality, exactly. And so there's such a thing as truth is this. Truth is anything that conforms to what is. Now, have you ever heard anyone say, well, that's fine, that's true for you, but I have another truth? You ever heard anyone say this kind of thing? Like, that's fine, you believe X, but that's your truth? My truth is something different. We've all heard this? Okay, this quick thing. This means yes, this means no, this means I don't know. So yes. Yes, we have. Or we've heard these kind of things. Now, here's the thing. Partially, that's true. Because here's the grammar lesson. Before it was the philosophy lesson. Now it's a grammar lesson. There's such a thing as subjective truth. There's such a thing as subjective statements. Here's a couple examples. I like Diet Coke more than Diet Pepsi. I prefer Papa John's to Domino's. I like to drive a little bit over the speed limit. Now, all these things are what? They're true for me. Because why? Because they're all subjective statements. Grammar lesson, subjective statements are all about the what? The subject. And all of those statements, who is the subject? I am. So if I say, I like to drive over the speed limit, does that reveal anything about the speed limit? What does it reveal? Who does it reveal? Me, exactly. I'm telling you about something that pertains to me only. So you could say, actually, Father, I actually like obeying all the registered speed limits. Well, that's fine for you. And it would be fine for you. And you should be applauded. But, well done. You could say, no, listen. I think Diet Pepsi's better than Diet Coke. I think Domino's is better than Papa John's. I like it more. Now, if all we had was subjective statements, I would be over here saying, I like Caribou coffee. And if someone over here would be saying, I like Starbucks. Well, I like Caribou. Well, I like Starbucks. Well, I like Caribou. Then we have a new dance. It's the duck. We'd have like, all we have to do here, if all we have is subjective statements, I like Caribou, I like Starbucks, I like Caribou, I like Starbucks. Is that a discussion? In that kind of conversation, how do you win? You don't. You have three ways to resolve that conversation. Way number one is, I like Caribou, I like Starbucks, I like Caribou, I like Starbucks, I like Caribou. Caribou wins. So the only way to get out of that conversation is either might makes right. I'm stronger, therefore what I say goes, which is what every parent in the history of humanity says. I'm the mommy. Go to bed. So one resolution is violence. Might makes right. The other one is this, I like Caribou, I like Starbucks, I like Caribou, I like Starbucks. Well, I've got 12 people over here and you've only got 2. So we win. More of us say Caribou is better than you. So we just get a majority vote. And then, the mob basically determines truth. Is that a good way to go? You guys ever seen a mob? Very ordered, we demand truth. No, it's out of control. Not a good way to live. So one is violence. Second is, we're a mob. The third is this, I like Caribou. I like Caribou. I like Starbucks. I like Caribou. I like Starbucks. I like Caribou. You know what? See ya. Let's call the whole thing off. This idea that we can't come to a conclusion because there's no such thing as objective truth. It's all about me. It's all about subject. But we realize this. There is such a thing as subjective truth, which are statements about the subject. There's also such a thing as objective truth, which is something like this. You can buy a 12-pack of Diet Coke at Cub Foods for $2.99. You can buy a Papa Murphy's large one-topping pizza for $12.99. The speed limit on the road outside of the Civic Center is 30 miles an hour. All of those statements are independent of who? Me, us, we. That's the grammar lesson. Me, us, we. I, thou. We have this whole idea that basically recognizing that, here's the thing. Who here knows that it's raining outside? So some of you don't know that it's raining outside. If you didn't know it was raining outside, does it stop raining? No, not at all. So basically this, if it objectively speaking is raining outside, does it stop if you didn't know it? No, that's objectively true. It's objectively what is. An objective statement, if it's true whether you know it, whether you like it, or whether you believe it. So it's 30 miles an hour in front of the Civic Center. I do not like that. I do not like it one bit, Sam, I am. I want it to be faster than this. Now, I might not know that it's raining, doesn't do anything about it. I might not like it that the speed limit's 30 miles an hour. It doesn't make a difference whether I like it or not. I might say, I refuse to believe that it is daytime right now. Does that change anything about reality, what is? Not at all. So here's the thing. Objective statements are true or false regardless of whether you know it, whether you like it, or whether you believe it. We have subjective statements. Yep, they're true for me. But it's also this thing is objective statements, which are true regardless of you. Has nothing to do with you. But here's the thing about objective statements. Our last philosophy lesson of the afternoon. It's this. There's such a thing, the very number one principle in philosophy is called something called the principle of non-contradiction. Give me a whoop if you've heard of the principle of non-contradiction. Awesome. Well, hello, philosopher kings. Nice to meet you. The principle of non-contradiction goes like this. A thing cannot both be and not be at the same time and in the same way. It's kind of a duh principle. Basically, a thing cannot both be and not be at the same time and in the same way. So, I cannot both be on this stage and not on this stage at the same time. The lights cannot both be on and not on at the same time. Now, someone always says this. We have the smart Alex in the crowd. You know who you are. And I know who you are. Because we can smell our own. The smart Alex would say something like, well, here's a table. not just imagine, table, here is a lamp, but it's turned off. So the lamp is both on, but off. Burn. Like, no. Listen, what is the principle of non-contradiction? Repeat it with me. A thing cannot both be and not be at the same time. Last thing, in the same way, lawyered. You cannot both, if it's in the same way, it means, is it on the table and off the table? No, it's on the table, but turned off. So, once more, the Catholics win. So, basically what I'm trying to say is, with objective truth, a thing cannot both be and not be at the same time in the same way. So, let's get to Jesus. We believe that Jesus is God. Question, is that a subjective statement or an objective statement? Objective. I am not saying I like the idea that Jesus is God. I'm not even saying I believe that Jesus is God. I'm saying, objectively, what is Jesus is God. Either that's true or what? Or it's not true. Either it's true or it's false. Either that statement is right or it's wrong. Can it be both? Can it be true for you but not for me? No, not. Let's one more time. I want you to answer this with some force. Can it be true that Jesus is God for you but not for me? No, not at all, because it's not a subjective statement. It's an objective statement. And when it comes to objective statements, they're either true or they're false. And if they're true at all times, at all places, for all people, whether you know it, whether you like it, or whether you believe it. What about someone who's like born a Muslim in Turkey? Is Jesus not God? Does that change anything about whether Jesus is God or not? Absolutely not. What if someone sins? Does that change the fact that Jesus is God or not? What if someone says, I don't like the idea that Jesus is God? Does that change whether Jesus is God or not? No, not at all. He's either God or what? Maybe he's just a holy man. You might have heard this before. Maybe Jesus is just a holy guy. A lot of people that I kind of run with a little bit, I work on a college campus. I talk to people all the time who will say, well, no, I don't believe Jesus is God. I think he was a prophet. I think he was a holy person. I was talking with a Muslim just a couple weeks ago, and he said, Dad, I think that Jesus is a holy man. He's one of the prophets. I would say this, question, is that an option? No, because the reality is this. Jesus came on the scene, and he didn't just say, hey, everyone, I'm a holy man. Jesus came on the scene and said, hello, I'm God. He said things like, I'm the resurrection and the life. There is no way to the Father except through me. So either that's true, or Jesus, you're a bad guy. Because you're claiming to be God, either you're not God and you know you're not God, in which case you're lying, or you're not God and you don't know you're not God, in which case it's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. These are the only options, right? If Jesus is not God, he's not a good person. He's a liar. If Jesus is not God, he's not sane. He would be crazy. Well, I like some of his teachings. That crazy guy, he had some good teachings. Would you even say that? I mean, you might have someone who has some mental illness. We're not making fun of that at all. But to say this, if I was detached from reality to the degree that I thought that I was the best priest in the world, would you say, you're kind of crazy? Yeah. If I thought, well, actually, I'm not just the best priest in the world, I'm Pope Francis. Shh. Would I be a little further detached from reality? What is? If I were to think, like, no, I don't just think I don't just actually believe I'm Pope Francis. I believe that I am Queen Elizabeth I. Or I believe I'm Marie Antoinette. Have some cake. Would I be even further detached from reality? If I thought that I was a jelly donut. And no, you guys, honestly, I was convinced that I'm a jelly donut. Would I be pretty far removed from reality? Would you, pretty quickly in talking with me, would you be able to kind of ascertain that I was pretty far detached from reality? Yeah, pretty quickly. If I actually thought that I was like a poached egg, yeah, it'd be pretty easy to spot, like, okay, that guy's nuts. Here is Jesus, and he comes on the scene. He doesn't just think that he's someone special like Moses or someone different like a butterfly. Here is Jesus who claims that he's actually the author of the universe, the one who made all of you. Every time Jesus met someone, he's like, yeah, formed you in the womb. Knew you before you were created. People are like, seriously? You seriously did? I don't know if he said that every time, but I imagine at least once Jesus is like, hey, guess what? Boom, I'm God. At one point, he's claiming to not just be part of creation, he's claiming to be the author of creation. Like, time, yeah, I invented that. Everything you see here, it all came into being through me. If Jesus is lying, he's a bad guy. If he's crazy, he's not worth following, not worth listening to. Scripture reveals clearly, though, that Jesus was not a liar. Reveals so clearly that he wasn't crazy. One of the reasons is because he's able to prove it. Jesus in his life was able to prove that he is who he says he is. So some people would say he can't. Remember that story of the 4 friends who bring their paralyzed friend on the mat and lower him through the roof? Jesus looks at the man and says, he looks at his friends and sees their faith and he says, your sins are forgiven. And people aren't like, oh, awesome. People were like, wait a second. Only God can forgive sins. And Jesus is like, yeah, what up? Jesus says, I know. Therefore, so you can be able to see that I am who I say I am, I say to the man, rise, pick up your mat, and walk. Jesus claimed to be the author of creation. And then he proved it in healing the sick, curing the blind, raising the dead. Remember the story this morning of Lazarus? Jesus just he remote control raises that guy. He's not even in the tomb like giving him mouth to mouth, like it was some chest, come on, Lazarus, you can breathe. Like he's outside the cave and he just says 3 words, Lazarus, come out. And the dead guy gets up and walks out. And actually it says in the scriptures, in John chapter 11, it says, as a result of this, many people came to believe in him. But as a result of this, others planned to kill him. Because this is the choice, you guys. When it comes to everything else, almost everything else in life, you can, like someone gets really excited about a movie or a TV show, like, oh my gosh, you have to watch Lost. You can watch it and go, meh. Someone says, oh, you guys, seriously, you don't even know. Excel Center, this Thursday, One Direction. And you can say, some people are like, yeah. Others are like, whatever. Oh, Harry. But when it comes to Jesus, you can never do that. It's never, meh. Jesus rose from the dead. Whatever. Jesus is God. Oh, whatever. It's in John 11. Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. He is who he says he is. Some people say, if you are who you say you are, then you get me. I belong to you. Others say, kill him. Kill him. Those, when it comes to Jesus, I'm going to tell you this, those are our only 2 options. Either he's God and we belong to him and we live like it, or kill him. I'm his enemy. It's either I belong to him because he's God, or I am his enemy. There is no middle ground. I'm sorry about that. Other things, there's middle grounds. When it comes to Jesus, if I'm not with him, I'm against him. And that if I want to be with him, Lord, I want you to be my Lord. I'm going to stand and place my faith in you. That means that has to change the way that I live. When I was in high school, I came to faith in Jesus. 15 years old, I encountered the Lord in a powerful way through confession. And then Mary brought me closer to her son through the rosary. And then when I encountered the Eucharist, my life was destroyed. When I realized the Eucharist really is Jesus, and I can get that no other place other than the Catholic Church. My life was, it was like every plan I have, every dream, every hope, everything, it's done because he really is who he says he is. He's real. So that has to change the way I live. And then I went to college. I went to this Catholic university in the middle of Minnesota that it's not Catholic. And I took so many theology classes, I could have double majored in one topic. I showed up there on fire because I was like, I want to go to this school because I can go to daily mass every day. I want to go to this school because there's all these monks on campus. I want to be close to them. I want to go to this school because there's a chapel 100 meters from my door. I want to go to this school because I can learn theology. I want to go to this school because I want to get close to Jesus. I have to tell you this. After 4 years of going to that school, I graduated with a degree in theology. I was going to daily mass every single day. I was a missionary in Central America working at a Catholic mission at a Catholic high school teaching religion, and I hated the Catholic Church. I wouldn't even say Catholic out loud. I would say Christian, but I wouldn't say Catholic. And the reason is because at that time, just like now, the church teaches things that the rest of the world doesn't like. And I was embarrassed by that. I thought, well, when it comes to abortion, I don't know. I'm for freedom. I'm for choice. So I don't know. I don't want to get involved in this. When it came to contraception, like it doesn't seem like I didn't hear any good reasons for this, that it would be wrong, intrinsically wrong to do this. So like I don't know. When it came to same-sex attraction, acting on that, I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, I want to love people, so I don't want to be an enemy of people. Because the rest of the world says this: if you're for the life of an infant in the womb, then you're against the mom. And if you're against contraception, then you're for enslaving wives. And if you stand with the church when it comes to the teaching of same-sex attraction, then you hate somebody. You're a bigot. You're homophobic. But the truth is none of those things. Why does the church say, let every baby live? Because every human being is made in God's image and likeness, born and unborn. But why does the church say no to contraception? Because the sexual act between husband and wife it means something. It means I love you with everything. It means it brings forth life. Why does the church say it is wrong to act upon same-sex attractions? It's because the church says to every man and every woman who experiences that, you're made for love. You're made for more than this. You know, I know so much, gosh. It's really hard. Because I know this. There's people in this room right now. In your experience of life, maybe you've had an abortion, maybe you're married and you contracept, maybe you're here in this room right now and you experience same-sex attraction. This is something you've experienced your whole life. And you hate it. Maybe it hurts you. And you think, I can never tell anybody this. How could God love me? How could I be part of the church? I was talking to a guy recently at UMD in Duluth. And he said, Father Mike, I need to talk to you about something. He said, I have same-sex attraction. I just want to know, is there a place in the Catholic Church for me? I looked at him, I said, absolutely. Like I say this, there is no other place in the world for you than in the Catholic Church. I told Daniel, you're going to find nobody who loves you more than Catholics who are living out their faith. But it's such a painful thing. I was talking to a mom recently, and her son, when he was born 28 years ago, he was born breech. And so when he was born, he came out of the womb and he was purple because the oxygen had been cut off. But he lived. He survived. And she told me that when he was 9 years old, she found him crying. And he's asking, why did God let me live? She's like, what do you mean? You have a good life. You have us, your father and I love you. Your siblings love you. You're so talented. What do you mean? He didn't say. 12 years old, 13 years old, crying again. Mom, why did God let me live? What is the struggle? What's the hurt that you have right now? When he was 17, when he was 18, even when he was 24, he's crying, talking to me. He's saying, why did God let me live? And I remember when my mom told me that about my little brother, that he used to come to her. He's crying, saying, why did God let me live? And a year and a half ago, he told me, my whole life I've experienced same-sex attraction. I'm out for a walk. I'm like, Maddie, well, you know that I love you. In fact, I can honestly tell you guys this. There's no one in this planet that I love more than my little brother. And he's experienced a lot of pain and a lot of loneliness because he experiences same-sex attraction. But here's the thing. Whenever he let himself get close to Jesus in the Catholic Church, I'm telling you this, whenever he let himself get close to Jesus and get close to other Catholics in the Catholic Church, he was never happier, ever. That has to be true today. that are brothers and sisters who experience same-sex attraction, that they know there is no place that they'll be loved more than in the Catholic Church. No, my brother had the question. He says, all our family, he said, will you accept me? That's a big question. Will you accept me? So I had to say, buddy, what do you mean? What does acceptance look like? And he showed me this video. It was on YouTube, produced by this guy who had been dating another guy. And he said that when he introduced his family to his boyfriend, he said, my family, received open arms. They called him Uncle Shane. He was part of the family. But when Shane told his family about me, his dad said, if you ever show up at this house, I'll meet you at the front door with a shotgun. So my brother shows me this video and he says, which one is it going to be? Will you accept me and everything I choose, or will you hate me? My whole family came to this conclusion of realizing this, like that's not a real choice. My dad even said this. My dad he's such a good man, so holy. My dad said, no good parent ever accepts everything their child does. Some parents do, but no good parent does. If your parents accepted everything you chose, they would be bad parents or you would be Mary. Perfect. The reality is, there's a third way. The two ways the world offers us is this: either accept every choice a person makes, or we hate you. There is a third way that Jesus offers, that the Catholic Church offers, and that third way is this: you will always, always, always have a home in the Catholic Church. You will always, always, always be loved in the Catholic Church. There is no sin that you can commit that's so awful that you can never, ever come home. You will always be loved in the Catholic Church. But the truth of the matter is, there are some things that are not good for us. And to say that is not to hate anybody. To say that is not to be bigoted. To say that is not to be phobic. To say that is to stand with faith and to stand with love. Last thing. I shared this with some of you guys before, but I once asked my bishop, his name Bishop Paul Serba, I said, Bishop, if I'm going to talk about same-sex attraction to people, what do you want me to say to them? So if you experience this, if you have a family member, a friend, someone you care about deeply who experiences this, here's what Bishop Paul Serba would say to you. He said, if in our diocese we had a parish filled with men and women who struggled in this particular way, I would love that parish with everything I am and everything I have. Because you realize the truth. Jesus loves you no matter where you're coming from, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've done, no matter what you do, no matter what you struggle with. Jesus loves you with everything that he has. That's objectively true. It's true for everybody, whether you know it, whether you like it, or whether you believe it. And the question is this: if it's objectively true that Jesus is God, that he gave us the Catholic Church, which will always guide us into truth, it will always guide us further into love. That's objectively true. Is it true for me? Jesus is Lord. Question: is he your Lord? The church was established by Jesus. Objectively true. Question: subjectively, are you part of that church? The history of Christianity for the last 2,000 years has been of people who saw the objective truth of Jesus and the church. And then they chose to stand on that faith. They chose to walk in that faith. They chose to let that faith direct how they lived, how they treated other people. No matter what you experience and what you struggle with, there is no place you'll be loved more or better than in the Catholic Church. It is objectively true that Jesus is God, that he founded a church, that Jesus is Lord. The question for this afternoon is, where will you stand? Will you let that objective truth be subjectively true for you? Will Jesus be your God? Will the church be your home? Will Jesus be your Lord? Are you willing to stand on that truth?